G'day ladies and gentlemen, it's Duckville here, bringing you some Wings of Liberty action this time. We're not going to be in the heart of the Swarm Arena this time, so keep in mind those things like the Mothership Cores, Swarm Hosts, and, Vipers and cool things like that won't be available, but what will be available is a high quality game between two very high level players here on, I believe this was on the Korean server. Down in the bottom left hand side is the good guy who everybody knows, everybody loves. He's been a Warcraft 3 pro for an extremely long time. I think some would consider he's still a pretty good player at that, but now in the StarCraft 2 arena he's one of the top players, one of the top Protoss, and a fantastic caster, I might add. Seeing him on MLG and some of the other events that he's done have been absolutely fantastic. It is a Grubby. Also having some really nice announcements from Grubby, of course, that he's just recently linked up with FXO and will be playing in the GSTL with FXO. That's pretty awesome. His opponent in the top right-hand side of Cloud Kingdom, our Blue Zerg player who hails from New Zealand, of course, in the C region. This guy is one of the big rising stars, has been doing a phenomenal job in taking down some really high-level players that we have here in C, and of course abroad, of course, playing on them in, this is High Masters on the Korean server, guys. This is no slouch right here. This is Team Frey's Petraeus. He's going to be, well, he'll certainly have his work cut out here for him, playing against one of the micro masters of the scene, and of course one of the, as we said, just a really decent Protoss player in Grubby. So they did actually have a quick chat a moment ago in the game just before about Grubby played against Mr. Mustache, which of course is Australia's own Aegis, our Gimli Terran, who looks a little bit like Gimli from Lord of the Rings, if you know what I mean. Shout out to Aegis, and of course if you don't know what I mean, look him up. Have a look for Aegis on Google or something like that, or just have a look perhaps on his stream, or have a look on his Twitter account. All those cool things. He's a pretty cool dude as well, and of course he's a fantastic player in his own right. Anyway, these two guys, looks like we will have an attempt at a fast expand. Well, after a spawning pool, it's not as if this is a super fast expand, but the probe doing a really good job of blocking out that hatchery, and as we can see, Petraeus is going to grab a couple of lings to get them out to stop this harassment. Of course, the probe comes back, puts a pylon down. He's even going to chase after the drone and continue to try and put the harassment on here at the third, but unfortunately, just a slight amount behind where he needed to be to actually block that off. So Grubby has done a reasonably good job with that. Meanwhile, he has gone for a Nexus first back at home. Of course, the Forge shortly after that as well. Looks like we will be seeing a cannon go up. Quick Smart along with a gateway just in this position right here, right about now. There you go. So everything looks pretty standard between these two guys. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on the fact that Grubby has taken just that one gas for the moment. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do with that. He did go for... Wait, is that... Oh, sorry. My apologies. That's a second gateway there. I wasn't even thinking. That's a forge inside the main base, so it's not even a forge wall off at all. But as we can see, Petraeus not perturbed by that at all. Has got his 3 hatcheries just about ready to rock, and of course with a queen on the way, she's going to help out with the injects. Going to get some more drones out as well, and he's going to continue on with just a standard economic play for all the meantime, I would assume. Looks like a couple of his drones going to move down to what is, well, technically the third base. It's about to pop up, but it's also in a way his second base very quickly there. And this map, of course, we've spoken about it before. If you've watched my stream, or you've watched some of the other Protoss versus Zerg casts I've done on this map. In fact, that is a Cybercore. Wow, I am... Oh, okay. No, sorry. That was part of the wall. Originally, it was a gate. I'm thinking. I swear he put down a gateway there for a moment. And what is going on? I haven't had any alcohol today, and I'm already seeing things. But anyway. This map, of course, brilliant for force fields. The old Sentry Immortal all-in can do quite well in this map. A lot of Protoss players like to use that. Of course, when you come up to the third base, you sort of approach from this angle just here, and then utilizing a couple of well-placed force fields, you can use the hatchery as its own force field in a way, because you can lock the units just down back here. They get stuck, can't come to defend the hatchery. If need be, you can chuck another force field up inside the mineral line there, and you can have an absolute field day with the hatchery. Then if worse comes to worse for the Zerg player, you can also have this happen. Force fields in this area here, either blocking you out of the third that way, or blocking you sort of out of getting back into the natural, and of course then you could be in heaps of trouble as a Zerg player. So, you know, we got to keep our eyes out for that kind of thing here. Grubby has picked up his second and third gas down the natural firstly, and then his fourth is coming back up at the main as well. So He's looks as if he will go for a very standard sort of style here, but I'm interested to see what comes out of the robotics bay. Of course, that's a big sign of what will be happening with a Protoss player. Will he go for an Immortal first? Will he go for an Observer first? All these kinds of things are very big tales of what can it be coming as a Zerg, and you need to be careful of these sorts of things. Look like Grubby is just doing a little bit of harassment here. A couple of these Zealots have gotten out and about, doing a little bit of damage, although it looks like they may have a little bit of a surround on their hands. Grubby doing his best to try and micro them out of danger. With +1 weapons, they're doing a really nice job against those Zerglings, and trading relatively efficiently there is Grubby, but as we can see, he's actually going for an Immortal first, so this, well, you know, this is a pretty big sign that you are going to go for a Sentry Immortal all-in. The only question I have here, oh, well, there you go, okay, I was going to say, is there is quite a lot of extra gas as well. I'm, you know, just a little bit cautious about what he's going to go for. So he's actually put down a Twilight Council. It just means that he wants this Immortal out just to be very, very safe right at the start. Of course, you've got to be very worried about some of these extremely high-level Zerg players who may just pull out the odd Roach attack right at the start. As we can see, a couple of Roaches have popped out for Betrayus, and he had a quick look at the front door and said, you know what? You've got an Immortal now, you've got a cannon, and a couple of force fields available. That's not going to happen. So, Betrayus backs off for now. Grubby is around about a third of the way done with his +1 on the armor. Looks like he will probably go for an expand here, and yeah, there it is. So he's going to pick up a third Nexus just down at the side here. So it looks like he's going to try and take this to a little bit more of a longer game. His Observer now heading out just to keep an eye on what's going on. Does see a few units at the Zolnaga Watchtower, but nothing major. There's no ridiculously huge amount of units, but as we can see, he's going to find that there are some Zerglings now streaking their way across the map, and it looks like Betrayus might try and put some damage on this third base here. If he can cause a cancel here, this does start to force a you know, a position for Protoss where you start falling into this sort of cascading situation where you run into quite a lot of trouble trying to secure a third base, because the Zerg numbers of Lings and of course Roaches just start to really pile up, and it can become quite troublesome to take the third. But the way that Grubby has expanded to his third base is extremely safe. We've got a lot of sentries, a couple of Immortals as well, and the odd Zealot and Stalker thrown in for good measure. So Betrayus is now aware of this. As we can see, he's being scouted out by that Observer. It's just having a quick look around. Has not scouted out the fourth base just as of yet, but Betrayus has taken that one and is going to try and get that one populated as quickly as possible. His worker count is currently sitting at 71. Of course, the main and the natural and the third all looking beautifully lined up with drones. And for Grubby, he's not doing too badly himself. He's down at 62 probes right now, a little bit behind where Betrayus is, but you know, that's nothing too much to worry about when you're against the Zerg. But he's now got his third, and that's a power point for any Protoss player. You sort of think, alright, if I can hold this for probably the next 5 or so minutes, then I can be in a really strong position. Of course, at around about that 16 to 18 minute mark, you want to get a little bit worried about the possibility of Hive Tech being ready, Broodlords being on the way, and as we can see from Betrayus, he's got his Spire on the way, nicely timed out with the Hive, so that when the Spire finishes, he can flick it straight over into a greater Spire if need be. Of course, the Infestation Pit has finished up on the Pathogen Glands, so these Infestors that have been added to the mix for Betrayus will be sitting there with a nice amount of energy, of course, able to throw down a couple of Infested Terrans or a Fungal or two. And Grubby will need to be wary of these kinds of things. He himself is also teched up a little bit. He's got the robotics bay churning away, poking away with those weird spider giraffe legs, whatever they are, at you know, whatever is going on in here. But he is getting the extended thermal lance prepared. We can see that he's just walled off at the front as well, and it looks like he's just going to get started on the Colossus production. Already halfway done, or over halfway done, with the first Colossus, and that is going to really add to the power punch of any type of push that Grubby wants to go for when he is ready. But just at the moment, still just poking around, checking out what's going on the map. The Zealot's just trying to be as cost efficient as possible. Unfortunately, he will lose 2 of those now that Betrayus is on 1-1 with his upgrades, and it looks like He is now getting prepared for any type of mid-game push, that sort of pre-Broodlord push that Protoss players always love to do, as we can see, getting started already as Grubby now pushing out to the watchtower. Going to see if he can get some damage done. Of course, there are quite a lot of sentries here. I wouldn't say that's a ridiculous amount of sentries, but it's still a decent amount. Going to help out with the force fields, not to mention the Guardian Shield. The first Colossus now coming about as well, with 1 armor and 1 on the weapons upgrades as well. Just pushing through the center section of the Cloud Kingdom, just trying to poke away at some of these creep trimmers. Patreus doing a very nice job with his creep spread, I'll just point out. He's not, it's no Scarlet by any means, but I mean, it's definitely one that is quite admirable, given that he's into the middle of the map, has quite a lot of creep spread here. Grubby, unfortunately, has just started downsizing it for him, so he's going to lose quite a lot of this creep through the middle section here. But, you know what? At this stage of the game, you can probably afford to send out another queen or two, and in fact, he's doing that right now. Just 1 queen popping down a creep tumor just to get started with the respread of that creep. And now Patreus moving into position to put an assault on this 4th base. And he is getting prepared. Of course, we've got some Corruptors here, going to scout out where those Colossus are, having a quick poke and seeing, alright, there they are. He actually forces some of those force fields out from Grubby, which is perhaps not what he intended. And it looks like Patreus has sized up the forces there. He said, well, there's only 1 or 2, possibly 3 Colossus. You know, I don't necessarily need the Corruptors to deal with this, because you can do, of course, a lot of damage with fungal growth. Of course, the infested Terrans do really nicely as well. Not to mention the fact that the simple Broodlord strike does a nice amount of damage itself. 20 damage per Broodling strike, and then of course the little bit of damage that the Broodlings themselves do with their needle claws, just poking away at the assimilator. And it looks like he is going to start the push against this base, probably being extremely patient right now. I am loving how patient he is. He's just sitting back. He's sitting here and saying, you know what, bring it, because I'm getting prepared. I've actually got 3 Colossus. We've got a lot of Stalkers here in the background, and there go the infested Terrans. Of course, the eggs have a slightly lower health count this time in this patch. However, this is not the patch that just came out, as in, like, within the last 24 hours, where they don't have upgrades or anything like that. So these guys will still pack quite a punch once they get further upgrades, and Grubby is now just trying to defend his base with the best intention possible, but unfortunately the Nexus does go down, and force field just absolutely everywhere. What is going on there? That is a ridiculous amount of force fields here from Grubby. He's got a lot of Stalkers at the back. They're going to try and blink forward. Unfortunately, the force field's actually blocking them out for quite a bit. The Infestors on the ground have basically no energy, and it looks like Grubby will fend this off. Very nicely done. Extremely patient stuff from Grubby. So we will force this back. Meanwhile, in the main base of Patreus, and a Zealot Warp in, a Warp Prism has stealthily roamed around the map, and now it looks like the Great Aspire is in a little bit of jeopardy here with perhaps a transfuse. There it is. Looks like the Great Aspire will survive for the moment. The Zealot's getting taken down quite quickly by the Zealots that were there. Of course, now Grubby is trying to push in a little bit further. He knows these Infestors have extremely low energy and won't necessarily be very useful at all in a battle. The attempted 5th base just across to the side also got taken out by some proxy Zealots there as well. Now inside the 3rd, they're also doing a fantastic job. And while there is a massive battle right here, right now, it looks as if Grubby may lose this one, because the Corruptors in the air are going to get rid of that Colossus. Of course, it looks like the Corruptors have all just sort of, you know, they've worn out their use right now. So the Stalkers take down the last remaining Infestors that are there on the battlefield, and Grubby has to retreat. But he has gotten a lot of damage done. He's gotten rid of any attempted 5th base just across to the top left, and just in time, the hatchery at the 3rd goes down. Looks like the Warp Prism is trying to make itself useful just once again. Warps in just enough Zealots, and Grubby is going to be very pleased with that. Lifts up the Zealots and is going to try and retreat now. In fact, the Corruptors switching into Broodlords, so there's no way they're going to be able to take down that Warp Prism just there. So Grubby is going to be reasonably happy with this position he's in right now. Of course, he's at 128 supply, which is, you know, it's not sort of the key position you'd want to be in at the 19-minute mark, but it's certainly something when you've gotten rid of a Zerg's attempted 5th base, you've gotten rid of his 3rd base as well, you've taken the Great Aspire, and, you know, you've still got the threat of this Warp Prism harassment here. You're going to still think that, you know, it's a pretty nice position. So Grubby going to continue on. Of course, it looks like this Warp Prism is going to perhaps wear out his welcome in just a moment. The Zealots do warp in time. They do get in, and he's trying to snipe down this hatchery. I would have loved to seen a couple couple of DTs in this mix, but unfortunately, Grubby, I believe, does not actually even have the DT tech just yet. He's got, does have the Templar Archives, of course, helping out to build all of those Archons, not to mention the fact that he can utilize Storm now as well, but he was not able to throw in the DTs, and Betrayus actually has no detection over this side of the map, so that hatchery could have been a goner right now, but it looks like we are going to have another very large battle just across to the side of the map. Storm's going down. They will catch quite a lot of those Lings there, and even some of those Infestors as well. One of them pops. The rest of the units on the ground are still in a little bit of trouble, though. There are only a couple of Stalkers, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to take down all of those Broodlords, and in fact, they do not get anything done. Now the Broodlords will have free reign over this base, perhaps a couple of Fungals on top of those Crows, but no, unfortunately, Betrayus does not have any Fungal left over. He's only got enough energy for a couple of Infested Terrans, and Grubby very carefully, very carefully done, blinks across to the side and takes out just two of the Broodlords. Doesn't want to be greedy, don't want to get overly greedy with these guys. Of course, when you're fighting with a much lower force of Stalkers, you have to be very careful with them, because as we can see, Broodlords, with only 4 of them, not to mention the Roaches on the ground, are still very powerful, and with these upgrades, +3 on the Carapace, these Roaches are sticking around for the long haul. Of course, the Broodlords have +1 on their upgrades. Grubby, meanwhile, 203 on his upgrades, so his units are extremely powerful, however, still very susceptible to that, the Broodlord and Infestor combination that we quite commonly see in Protoss vs Zerg Wings of Liberty. Of course, I'm still sort of waiting to see if Grubby's going to throw down the old Fleet Bacon, because we want to see some Fleet Bacon in this action right here. Of course, that Mothership, a great tool to utilize when you're trying to deal with this late game composition from a Zerg player. Looks like Betrayus is going to try and push in on his third base. He may be able to get some really good damage done here. Just sort of worried about the fact that once these Archons can actually get into position, he might be in a little bit of trouble. But some beautiful Storms from Grubby. That's going to wreck quite a lot of those units. In fact, all of these Infestors better get out of there quick smart, because they are getting very low on health. But this Colossus is proving worth its weight in gold. Up to 21 kills, 22 being micro-backed by Grubby. Very nicely done. And it looks like Betrayus, well, he is still getting a beautiful amount of damage done, but there are no real reinforcements coming in. Like, he's got, you know, there's an Overseer, there's a couple of Corruptors. These guys aren't really too useful at all against a composition of Archons, Stalkers, and the odd Colossus as well. So, Grubby looks like he will this attack for now. I mean, the problem is, will he be able to last? I mean, we'll have a check at how his economy is going. He's got this 4th base just across to the right-hand side. Of course, his main base is mined out. The natural is effectively done as well. His 3rd, still looking alright. He needs to rebuild that assimilator there, but he obviously needs to get this base going if possible. Meanwhile, for Betrayus, he's sitting on a total of 58 drones right now. Does have a 4th base just across to the side here. This base at the side, the 4th there, well, I suppose that's a 4th as well, is still mining away quite nicely, although I'm not sure what these spine crawlers are doing. And now, as we can see, with the Greater Spire back up, Betrayus will be able to just restock his army once he gets a little bit more gas. As we can see, he's just getting those Broodlords prepared. We're going to have a total of 2 Broodlords right now. Just going to add to that to make a total of 5 in just a moment. He's also got 10 Roaches on the ground, not to mention 29 Lings as well, with, you know, not too bad upgrades on all of these units. +3 Carapace is done, +2 Weapons is done for all of those Lings, and of course the Broodlords with their 01 is not too bad of a combination as well. So Betrayus coming down to the side is going to get rid of that attempted 5th base from Grubby, but a beautiful Storm going down yet again, shredding up quite a lot of those Lings, and Betrayus is forced to retreat to his Spinecrawler wall at the bottom of the ramp, because this is just a very powerful force right now. 4 Archons, we've got a lot of Zealots. In fact, well, it used to be a lot, it's only 3 now, but they have 203 on their upgrades. A couple of Templar are also here as well, and Grubby has thrown down a pylon in preparation for the need to reinforce his units with quick smart, because as we can see, Betrayus is really getting beefed up right now. We've got a lot of Lings here. Of course, he's still sitting at 126 supply, but if he could throw a few more Broodlords in there, of course a couple more Infestors are always good to see as well, and he might be able to just take down this army, but you know, it'll be a very tough job, because of course the Protoss at this stage of the game is when they start to get just extremely powerful, and you can see why the power in that Storm, of course, just shredding apart all of those Lings. But now with 5 Broodlords up in the sky, in fact I think there are a couple more somewhere else, but I don't know where they are. he is going to be able to start to lay siege, and I really love this position that Betrayers has taken up here. He's starting to slowly move forward with these spine crawlers here. The Broodlords can use this this little, you know, whatever this is this like a statue or something like that, whatever it is, they can use that as a sort of an area to sit over and just be relatively well protected, unless it's against the storm, because last time I checked, Broodlords don't have umbrellas, they effectively are a big umbrella. And with a couple more storms thrown down, Grubby is really just starting to eat away at those Broodlords, a couple of them getting very, very low on health, another one just morphing in at the back. But Infested Terrans may do a really good job here. Grubby, I don't know what the deal is there. He's actually pulled those Templar away. He's going to try and come in here. It looks like some feedbacks is going to be what he is up for here. Throwing down a few storms as well. And then a Warp Prism just coming through. What is this? What is this guy doing? Grubby with some interesting tactics, just going to warp the Stalkers in underneath the Broodlords. I'm not really sure what all that was about, but then he blinks them away and is able to clean up the last of these Broodlords. These guys are just very low on health. The last remaining Colossus also doing a good job, but keep in mind that, you know, whoop, there's some micro, going to try and keep some of these Stalkers alive. Very nicely done by Grubby. He's actually, there you go, taking the target off most of those units before the Spine Crawler was able to take the poke and get some damage done. But as we can see, Infestors did a fantastic job at this third base. It has really removed quite a lot of Grubby's mining potential. With this base gone, he's going to be a little bit further down in his income. Of course, only down to around about 800 right now. So he's in a little bit of trouble because, of course, the natural is now gone. The third is just about done, and Betrayus is even inside this this fourth base or fifth base, whichever one you want to call it. Let's not keep track of bases. They've traded so many this game. Betrayus, meanwhile, still sitting back here. His own fourth base is still mining away quite nicely. The fifth just across the side is, of course, doing quite well in its own right. And Grubby is, well, he's starting to really get lower in his population. Of course, 83 supply right now. The Warp Prism trying to help out with some warp-ins, but I mean, there are Broodlords just across the side laying waste to all of those units that warp in. The Warp Prism doing its best to try and help out, but I mean, Grubby is actually starting to fade a little bit here. He's having real trouble with his robo production. Where is that robo, by the way? There it is. He's having a little bit of production trouble with the production, as we can see. Not building anything out of there. His fourth or fifth base down to the southern right-hand side is also being destroyed. It looks like that is just about to be finished up there. Grubby down to 36 supply. One Colossus is left. He's trying to micro it, but no way, Jose. Grubby is forced to GG, and wow, what a really action-packed game that one was. We saw a lot of drops inside Betrayus' base. We also saw Grubby losing base after base down at this, down in these lower positions here as well. Broodlords coming in, and Infestors also helping out at Betrayus, just able to outlast his opponent with his economy sitting in a relatively nice spot compared to where Grubby's was. So, hope you all enjoyed that game. It was a lot of fun in Wings of Liberty, and well done by Betrayus there, taking down one of the big names in the scene. And unfortunately for Grubby, was not able to pull that one out, but we'll see how he goes next time, and I hope to see you all there. Cheers. Did actually see the worm, so he was quickly reacting to this Nidus worm down at the southern side of his base, but the probes were not quick enough, and some of the roaches will